I'm joined by our political correspondent, Andrew Kerr. Well, Andrew, the SNP say they won this election, did they?
Well, Gordon, perhaps you can take your pick, as you said, according to your political persuasion. Alex Salmond, as we heard him there, was adamant that he'd won because he'd the largest number of councillors. Let's just have a look at the final tally there. Look at there, SNP 424 compared to Labour's 394. So it seems for Mr Salmond a clear moral victory there in gaining the largest number of councillors. But due to the vagaries of the STV voting system, it's very hard to translate that into, for example, a Holyrood win.
Well, yeah, looking at that, what's changed?
Well, let's look at the results before the election, how we stood just before. That's coming up now. We have seen a substantial number of gains for both Labour and the SNP. Look at that there, 57 extra councillors for the SNP, but compare that to Labour, 58 for them. So in some ways, Labour can claim a moral victory for having more councillors. Well, one more. They've had one more elected there. Just looking at the Conservatives' result as well, let's widen out to the other parties. Down 16. They probably reached the kind of bedrock of their support. But as you mentioned in the introduction, terrible night for the Lib Dems, down 80.
Now, Glasgow, that's the one everyone was watching, isn't it?
Everyone was watching Glasgow. This was the glittering prize for the SNP, for Alex Salmond. This was the one they really hoped they could get. They held the party conference here in Glasgow back in March. Let's look at the result there. Labour 44, SNP 27. It didn't happen for the SNP. Labour won an overall majority. They were delighted with that in a PR system. So the SNP had been left licking their wounds for that.
Although they did actually increase the number of seats,
They did increase, yeah. They got an extra 7 seats, and Labour got an extra 5, but Labour did still manage that overall majority.
But the SNP did quite well in some other places, didn't they?
They did indeed. Now, Labour had 2 gains in terms of councils. The SNP had 2 gains as well. Angus was one of them. Dundee was the other. Look at that. SNP, 16 councillors. That's an extra 2 councillors. They're the largest party there. This was, of course, Labour. Dundee was a big Labour stronghold. It has been in the past. So it's a really significant gain to get that one.
Right. So, other than Glasgow, as you say, you can pretty much take your pick on who's done best.
Exactly.
Depending on what your prejudices are.
You can take your pick. And Gordon, it was a pretty dull campaign over the course of the past 4 weeks, but it's turned out to be a pretty exciting afternoon.
All right, Andrew.